and the ancestors are looking out for us. God Hayes is exposing them, man.
Okay, you see that chair right there? See how big it is?
Yeah.
Now look at the Pope chair under it. Scroll down, look at the Pope chair under it.
Never have it been made so clear.
Young TV. Young.
We running the game right now.
Young TV.
Time to take over.
Young
We the hottest in the game. Hit that like, hit that subscribe button. If you just not tuned in.
TV.
Share, like on your Instagram, Facebook.
Young TV.
If you tuned in, we broadcasting live from 2030, baby.
Young TV. Young
Taking over the game, baby. Oh yeah.
Young TV.
Hit that like.
Young TV.
Get them likes up in the air, you heard me?
Young TV.
Ride by. Hotel Islam.
Young TV.
Assalamu alaikum. Flown lesson.
Young TV.
Hit that like.
Hey, Robot, hit that like, hit that subscribe button if you're new to the channel. Man, we about to get this shit cracking, man. Hey, well, how you feeling out there, Chief?
Man, I'm me out there. I don't got nothing to complain about. Yep, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay, yeah. I don't got nothing to complain about. I do just want to say whatever we discuss in this video is public notice to all of the tribes, and it's a notice to agent, it's notice to principal. So every tribe member that's notified, it's up to them to notify their chief that we are redeeming everything that they took from us, and they don't like it, but they can't do nothing about it but comply. Right? So where we at now is end game of the end game. We about to see the great reckoning. And the great reckoning is the resolution, the final resolution to the Constitution. Remember, they violated their oath to the Constitution. Therefore, the Constitution was used as toilet paper. And since they used the Constitution for toilet paper, now it's time for us to show them how to properly clean their ass. So this is a valid format in social media platform with a reach that extends beyond 1,000 people. It's time-stamped in archivable format for posterity and for legal criteria to be met for all public notice. And with that, it's on you, El. Roll the corn.
Right. Hey, you want to start with the Chief this Cynthia for the super chat. Hey, you want to start with the small stuff first, and then we get into the 7-minute tapes? Because we got a couple of small things we just got to go over that people want to ask about. It's about the Venezuela. I got like a couple clips on.
Okay, but look, you the director.
Huh?
You the director, right? You don't when you directing the show, when you don't ask the guest on the show how to direct the show, you direct the show, and the guest gonna come along and they gonna help you with the show.
Hey,
so start directing.
The Council of Nicaea, that time period of history, is when ancient history was determined. The narrative of history, Herodotus started that, but it became woven into an accepted teaching through the Roman time period of how old is human civilization? When did it begin? That whole time period was established. And once it became established, it hasn't budged since then. We have the same history that we've essentially been teaching for like 2,000 years. It doesn't make sense. Within the last couple years, all the announcements out of White Sands, New Mexico, we've been told humans got to the Americas through the Bering Strait no earlier than 13,000 years ago. And that was how they got there because it was frozen and they walked over and got here. Except that we have established now with scientific evidence that White Sands footprints of humans are like 26,000 years old. Our lens that we've been taught is that our civilization is 6,000 years old. It emerged in ancient Mesopotamia, and that nothing that existed before that was anything other than hunter-gatherers and then Neolithic humans. That's it. That's what we're told. Anything older than that. And yet we get places like Göbekli Tepe that are accurately dated with radiocarbon dating that are double that age.
Wait, you mean there's a country in Antarctica, Agarthia, that is over 15,000 years old?
Look, buddy, when we first stumbled across that continent, they were already there. No one really knows how long they've existed. There's no reliable way to measure it.
But the highest level of global intelligence.
Oh, they know.
And the Antarctic Treaty.
That's not about protecting penguins. It's about keeping us out because the Agarthians don't want visitors. They live in a city unlike anything on Earth. Massive pyramid-based energy systems, eerily similar to ancient Egypt, built with technology we can't even comprehend. We believe they've carved hidden trade routes that stretch through and beyond the ice wall, linking them to civilizations buried deep in the uncharted lands. They're the gatekeepers to a world we've been locked out of. And they control every inch of that ice wall perimeter. We've been studying them for decades, but it was never enough. So the FSB did the unthinkable. They captured one of the Antarctic beings that lived in Agarthia.
Let's go from there, Al. So the first dude was talking about the White Sands in the Americas and the old footprints, right? And he was talking about, remember, we told you the Out of Africa theory stems from the historical narrative given from a European perspective, or what they call a Eurocentric view of her historical record. Notice he said that the history hasn't changed in 2,000 years. 2,000 years ago, there was no concessions in what we call today the Middle East for the presence of people in the Americas. Right? You had to be a high-ranking priest with access to the portal gate to go from Kemet to Arizona, right? If you wasn't a high-ranking priest, you had access, so therefore that information don't exist to you. Now, when they give us this narrative of history, none of it is considering anything in the Americas as a historical perspective from Herodotus' viewpoint. You got to remember, who was Herodotus? He was a Greek philosopher, right? That means he was from Greece. And the Greeks was being civilized in Egypt. Their first university was set up on the island of Crete in about circa 325 AD, or BC, I mean. Right? That was their first university. The university was set up by priestesses that was sent to civilize Greece and to teach them matriarchal culture, what they call Hellenistic culture. It's named after Hela, the goddess, Helen, the catalyst for what they call the Trojan Wars, right? Or the Spartan Wars. They got different names for it. Now, in the Greek civilization, Helen is Hela. At the beginning of Ragnarok, there's a Odin or Zeus, whoever, the father of Thor and Loki, is going into his 1,000-year sleep. So he's leaving them in charge, but it's a problem. Once he leaves, Thor and Loki discover that their sister, Hela, has returned to reclaim her seat on the throne. What throne is she referring to? they keep pointing, because the show is Ragnarok, they keep pointing to Asgard. It wasn't Asgard. It was the Earth Throne, the matriarchal, or what we call the sacerdotal seat. The sacerdotal seat is the supreme earth seat of the Great Mother. The Black Madonna holds her child and delivers the message to the public that unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given. He was waiting to be devoured by the dragon, but Big Momma steps in and blocks the dragon and catches the baby with her own hands. This is the story, right? Now, because all of a woman's eggs are in her at birth, every grandchild is still a child of that mother. So this is how the Big Momma hold the maternal right, because she carried the baby 9 months before her daughter ever conceived to carry it 9 months, right? So they have to adjust for the sacerdotal seat, the seat of the Great Mother, who was displaced from her throne in the Anunnaki Wars, right? Which took us to the second video. When I was telling y'all there's been a civilization under the ice, that serves as a receipt, because I've been telling people for 5 years almost that under the ice of Antarctica, there was a frozen civilization that could telepathically communicate with the people that was coming down there to give them information, to teach them how to thaw them out from the frozen ice. But he mentioned something else, Agartha. Agartha is in the center of the earth. The torsion field version of Earth is not the same as the infinite plane version of Earth, which is not the same as what they call the concave or convex image of Earth. These is different levels of spiritual beings looking at the Earth. If you don't have a 3-dimensional paradigm, you will not see the round Earth. If you're stuck in the 4th dimension, everywhere you look is an infinite plane, because all is mind. And the map across the mind takes you across what they call the checkerboard floor, right? When I was a little boy, I used to press my eyeball. It'll go dark. But if you hold it for a second, the checkerboard floor will appear. But the only reason it's appearing is because of a significant blood quantum or quotient of divine blood. You can't see the checkerboard floor if you don't understand the optics. And that's why when I first started studying the eyeball, I pressed the side of my eyelid right here. My eyeball, it'll go dark. And if I continue to hold it, and I can see with my spiritual eye, there's a checkerboard there. The checkerboard is the 5th dimension. And it's on the 5th dimension where the game of the gods is played that affects the 3 dimension. So these people, when I told you the Bereshanga tribe didn't come from Africa, they was already there. This is basically what they confessing to in the second video, that it was already people there. They've been there, right? They was under the ice, and he calls it an ice wall. It's a shelf, right? Now, remember that big mountain out west? They call it Devil's Mountain or Devil's Peak, where they had close encounters of the third kind, delivering the aliens delivering the abductees back on top of that mountain.
Right.
Right. Now, imagine that multiplied by a couple thousand times, and you understand how an ice shelf works. But you won't understand how it got there. If you want to understand how it got there, you have to be able to have the 3-dimensional perception of the hollow earth or the torsion field earth. Because if you take the torsion field, it looks like an apple almost. But if you poke out of the globe around it, the auric field that holds everything to it, once you pierce through that, you are at absolute zero. right? Below absolute zero. It's several hundred degrees below zero. That means that it's so cold that if water is exposed, it instantly freezes. The good thing about a flash freeze versus a slow freeze is the flash freeze can preserve whatever is frozen in a flash flood. Now, Earth is 1/3 of the size it used to be. When it was called Tiamat, it was almost as big as Jupiter. And it was a water world. But when they crashed that ship into it and they blew that chunk off that you call the asteroid belt, and they took away the moon that it produced and put this thing up, Luna, right? When they put Luna up there, it stopped the women from being able to control a menstrual cycle and their biorhythms, right? What we call it in modern terminology, the biological clock. Under the pre-lunar Earth, or Tiamat, as it was called back then, under that pretense, the woman had control of her bodily functions to such a high level that she could turn off her menstrual cycle and turn it back on at will, right? Not only could she turn it on and off, but she can auto-inseminate herself, right? Auto-insemination of a seed is known in modern science as parthenogenesis, right? Parthenogenesis is a non-semen conception, an immaculate or a clean conception without the aid of the spittle of the man or the spill of the man, which is his ejaculate, which is his semen and his sperm. This was what caused the great war in heaven. And this is why I tell you in Revelations that the woman was travailing in childbirth, and the dragon was waiting to devour the child up on its birth. The dragon is a red dragon, but it represents those who steal the babies from the mothers and use it for blood magic, because the dragon means master. The blood magic is derived from what we call the Babylonian sin rites that made everybody sinners until we broke the whole of the doctrines of sin, which is threefold, which is why you have a trinity. Because it's blood magic, which represents the menstrual of the mother, right? It's sex magic, by which way the father passes the seed to the mother in the act of sex. And then it's money magic, which is the child, who is the heir, H-E-I-R, who is the one who is to receive the heritable wealth of the mother and the father as the first competent heir suitable to receive a birthright. And this is why you see Solomon in Kings killing his brother who had took the throne while his father was still alive. And Bathsheba, the wife, goes to the father and say, you know, this dude out here riding around talking about he the new king and that you crowned him. And the father said, no, I didn't crown him shit. I didn't tell him he was finna do nothing. So Bathsheba said, well, if that's the case, what do you think about assigning the throne to your son Solomon? And this is called the negotiation of princes. Each prince be evaluated by what we call consort number one, the wife. Consort number one may or may not pick her own child. The option becomes up to her, because if she never produce a competent male heir, then she have to pick from the male heirs that's available in order to find a competent replacement on the fatherland. Once she present him to the father had to test his position, his ability to hold his position. When the father tests his ability to hold his position, if he passed the test, now he's qualified to assert his claim to the throne. So this is why you see Bathsheba negotiating with David about seating Solomon as king, right? They use this book called the Bible because it derives from the ancient story we call the Holy Drama. Well, it's actually not the Holy Drama, but the Osirian resurrection, which is the resurrecting the Father by finding the Son to put on the Father's seat. Heru becomes Osiris, right? And he had to be picked by the Queen Mother, sealed with the number 13, right? Number 13 is the Queen Mother seal. The man, number 6, doesn't become the master until he flips to number 7, right? So now that's a 67 numerically, but when you add them together, what do you get? The Queen Mother seal. So the Queen Mother tells her son that the Big Momma to be restored is born in 67, right? By sacred sealing it with 19. But it depends on the father line and the mother line. When the mother line, Empress Verdiasi, is infiltrated, she can no longer restore the Americas back to the tribes. She's been what we call collaterally estopped, right? That means that they have put so many roadblocks in the way by infiltration and subjugation and subversion to prevent her from exercising her matriarchal right to expel all imposters. This will take us to the Blue House now, because Empress Verdiasi can't claim the throne before she leaves this earth because she's infiltrated. And how do we know she infiltrated? It's because she never asserted her matriarchal right to sit in the sacerdotal seat. None of her advisors told her that the sacerdotal seat was in Philadelphia. And by her sitting in that seat is tantamount to the queen on the throne and ordering order to the whole kingdom. But when you sit in the sacerdotal seat in America, it's at this era, the close of the age, opening of the new age, dawning of Aquarius at the closing of Pisces, right? Taking him here from under the water to above the water. We have to see a matriarch sit in the sacerdotal seat, which is the heralding of the close of the empire that was ruling and the reset for the new birth to take place. So it falls down to what we call numerical value, right? Do you see it play out in the numbers? Once it play out in the numbers, then you can see where it fit in at in the paradigm. And then you move to the next level, right? So you can either, we can go from here to the next one, Elder, or you could take a couple questions in the intro.
Hey, do y'all have any questions based on the information that was given so far? Because we got a lot of stuff. Yeah, the audio had went out, but it's back good now. Everybody's saying it's back good now, so we good. What else? Okay, yeah, let's go to this next thing because we got some hot stuff, man. We waiting on y'all got any questions? We're gonna roll the next cake.
All right, everyone, keep up with me. I'm about to break down everything you need to know about what the U.S. is doing to Venezuela and the whole world at large. The real reason the U.S. is invading Venezuela goes back to a deal Henry Kissinger made with Saudi Arabia in 1974. And I'm going to explain why this is actually about the survival of the U.S. dollar itself. Not drugs, not terrorism, not democracy. This is about the petrodollar system that has kept America the dominant economic power for over 50 years. And Venezuela just threatened to end it. Here's what really happened. Venezuela has 303 billion barrels of proven oil reserves, the largest on earth, more than Saudi Arabia, 20% of the entire world's oil. But here's the part that matters. Venezuela was actively selling that oil in Chinese yuan, not dollars. In 2018, Venezuela announced it would free itself from the dollar. They started accepting yuan, euros, rubles, anything but dollars for oil. They were also petitioning to join BRICS. They were building direct payment channels with China that bypassed SWIFT entirely. SWIFT being the Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunication that ensures the whole world is reliant on the US dollar and banking system. And Venezuela was sitting on enough oil to fund de-dollarization for decades. Why does this matter? Because the entire American financial system is built on one thing, the petrodollar, which is US dollars earned by oil exporting countries from selling oil, creating a system where oil is priced and traded globally in US dollars. In 1974, Henry Kissinger made a deal with Saudi Arabia. All oil sold globally must be priced in US dollars. In exchange, America provides military protection. This single agreement created artificial demand for dollars worldwide. Every country on earth needs dollars to buy oil. This lets America print unlimited money, while other countries have to work for it. It funds the military, the welfare state, the deficit spending. The petrodollar is more important to U.S. hegemony than aircraft carriers. And there's a pattern of what happens to leaders who challenge it. In 2000, Saddam Hussein announces Iraq will sell oil in euros instead of dollars. In 2003, Iraq was invaded. Regime was changed. Iraq's oil immediately switched back to dollars, and Saddam was lynched. The WMDs were never found because they never existed. Thus, the U.S. killing over 1 million Iraqis just for shits and giggles. In 2009, Gaddafi proposes a gold-backed African currency called the gold dinar for oil trade. Hillary Clinton's own leaked emails confirmed this was the primary reason for intervention. The email quote said, "This gold was intended to establish a pan-African currency based on the Libyan golden dinar." In 2011, NATO bombs Libya. Gaddafi was sodomized and murdered, and Libya now has open slave markets. We came, we saw, he died. Hillary Clinton laughed on camera. The gold dinar died with him. And now Maduro, with 5 times more oil than Saddam and Gaddafi combined, actively selling in the Chinese currency, yuan, building payment systems outside dollar control, petitioning to join BRICS, partnered with China, Russia, and Iran, the 3 countries leading global de-dollarization. This isn't coincidence. The U.S. rule of thumb, challenge the petrodollar, get your regime changed. Every single time. Stephen Miller, U.S. Homeland Security.
What did I tell you people? They invaded Venezuela because JP Morgan's silver short position blew up. When I first learned that JP Morgan inherited Bear Stearns' short silver position, silver was at $13 and that position was $1.5 trillion. So with silver at $76, that position is now $8.8 trillion. At $75 is 117 billion ounces of silver that JP Morgan is short. So here they are building a smelter in Tennessee. Tennessee does not even produce silver, and they're building the smelter with the Department of Defense. Why is JP Morgan partnering with the Department of Defense? Because the dollar blew up. Yes, and they need to store the silver that they're going to steal from Venezuela in those lime caves in Tennessee. Venezuela does not produce a lot of silver, but it has the potential to produce a lot of silver. So that is what's going on. Now look at the numbers. A $7.4 billion smelter facility. 7 equals 20. 4 equals 24, which is what? 44. They say that JP Morgan has 750 million ounces of silver in their warehouses. They've always had that. You have to have a big physical position if you're going to have a massive short position. 7 equals 20. 5 equals 24, which is 44. And look what they say. This new Tennessee smelting facility is going to make 75 jobs for Americans. 7 equals 20, 5 equals 24, which is 44. This is the occult, people. The dollar blew up. The silver short position that JP Morgan inherited from Bear Stearns was 1.5 trillion. So with silver at $75, that's about $8.8 trillion now. $8.8 trillion worth of silver is about 117 billion ounces that we are short silver. And they say JP Morgan has 750 million ounces. Yeah, that's a slight difference. That is why we broke into Venezuela, to steal their oil and because they have massive silver potential. I'm telling you people, it's the occult. Sign, share, and promote the Full Disclosure Act. Listen to what
they told you it was about oil, but what if I told you the U.S. just stole $1 trillion in silver while everyone was watching the wrong headline. It was not a war. It was a resource extraction op. Look, less than 24 hours after the U.S. invaded Venezuela, a deal was inked. A new $8 billion silver smelter facility financed by JP Morgan, jointly owned by the Department of Defense, to process Venezuelan silver. Why? Because JP Morgan was underwater on a physical silver short worth billions. They did not invade for oil. They invaded to bail out the bank. Comment scroll if you're ready for the real blueprint.
So come to find out, this the real reason why Trump went and invaded Venezuela. Man, this shit crazy. Y'all gotta check this shit out.
All right, so from all it, Rod, that they wanted to ask the question. Okay, so they going in, they talking about the oil, the petrodollar, the brick is already, you know what I'm saying, going up against the brick is really busting America upside the head. So they saying the cover up was the oil was part of it, but the cover up scheme was to get that silver, man, for JP Morgan, because he really don't got what he say he got in the storage, and if they don't come up with this silver fast, that dollar could be in threat. So you think they gonna try to pull another silver exchange, like what they call in all the silver and confiscate? Oh, turn your silver in or else. So what do you think from this Venezuela thing? From what all we got, Rug? What you think?
Okay, play it backwards, Elder.
Okay.
Remember, they took us off for what standards? The gold standard and the silver standard, right? And they confiscated all of the gold, and then they later requested us to turn in our silver.
Right.
Okay, now, if we reclaiming everything, who got to give us what back?
Good question.
It has to be played in reverse.
Okay, go ahead.
So they have to give the people back the gold and the silver.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The reason this is because this is the biggest single transfer of wealth in the history of the world. No time in history has anybody came to power and gave economic opportunity to everybody that they could find, not everybody they could see. Right? Normally, if a country take a windfall, the only people that actually see the benefit is what's known as the aristocracy. The aristocracy is coming from Aristotle. Right. That's who they named after. Aristotle was educated in Egypt. The same as Herodotus, the same as Plato's teachers. Right? Mm-hmm. This is when he giving us the story of the Americas, what they call it the Great Atlant, which became Atlantis when they tell the story. It's a Platonic story. Platonic means a friendly story. It's like you got a platonic relationship with a woman. It's a non-sexual relationship, meaning there's no intercourse. That means that there's just two standalone philosophies, right? The two standalone philosophies is known as the twin pillars, severity and mercy. These are teaching tools, severity and mercy. People have a tendency to run from pain and gravitate toward pleasure. The mercy seat is the seat by which pleasure is derived. The severity seat is the seat by which the pains of discipline is applied. Right? Now, the one who walks the middle path, aka the middle pillar, is the one who's called the straight bump, as in the two-ball cane, and the cane being the straight bump. Right? In the left ball and the right ball. Right? So you playing a game of baseball with a black ball and a white ball. You strike out on the black ball because you can't see it. But you hit the home run with the white ball. that goes over the field. The black ball is called the strike, right? Which is actually a fastball. Speed of light. If you can match the speed of light, you travel at the speed of dark. Dark moves so fast that it's already there when the light comes. And it'll still be there when the light gone. So now we're seeing the imagery being played out in the Venezuelan situation. There's other stuff militarily going on with Venezuela as a drug export center for the deep state in America. Remember, Maduro gave the files to America that identify everybody who was funneling money back to themselves from the Venezuelan drug trades. This is why they targeted the drug ships and they was just blowing them up, right? Because they was cutting off the money supply. Now we go back to the dollar, the petrodollar, the silver backing, and the gold backing. This is what this is taking us to. Militarily, they're creating a circumstance that's going to trigger another condition. If the people that's receiving the kickback money are hiring private militaries, right? They're using the accumulated Federal Reserve notes that comes in on pallets on transport planes, just like the drugs. They bring the money over here and then they break it down into duffel bags and Halliburton briefcases, and they distribute it to the deep state actors attaché to be delivered to the deep state actor. They pay their militaries, their private militaries, millions of dollars a month, depending on the level of security they're asking for. If you cut off the access to the airspace, you cut off the deep state actors' access to what's known in the streets as liquid cash. They are no longer liquid. That means that everything is transactional is going to have to handle digitally. The problem with that was because they knew who they were, they already cut their bank accounts off. Access denied. Now, Maduro know each one of the people who's working through Central Intelligence and the DEA agency to traffic the drugs from South America, coming from all South American countries, not just Venezuelan, but using Venezuela as like a way station. And the file is the whole who own what coca farm, what poppy field, who own it. It's in the paperwork. Maduro surrendered the paperwork. Now, how do you protect Maduro once this is all brought out into the public? You have to have him under what's called state-sponsored security on high level, so you charge him with high-level crimes and you lock his ass up. Right? Now, the deep state have to figure out who can they pay to help Maduro commit suicide, like Jeffrey Epstein. While they trying to figure that out, they still got to pay their private militaries protection. Now, as a private military, most of these guys that started them, 99% of them are former military. That means that they still believe in their oath to protect the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. So the message goes from the military, let us make our money, and when they can't pay, you can come get them because we won't be here. So the military say, okay, just keep an eye on your ward. Because when you hire protection detail, they call you their ward.
Mm-hmm.
So while they watching the ward is paying them to watch him, but they still in communication with military intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Now, they know that these deep state actors, these private militaries know that they had access to trillions of dollars that the regular people never knew of or seen. And they was using sizable amounts of it in what's known as black ops operations.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now, if you're going to get these people, you have to trap them using what they already do as the bait for the trap. That way, you know, the enemy bait the trap himself. Now, when they get Maduro out, then they can show us exactly what the United States corporation being installed over here. They could show us the example so we could see how it worked when they took over and exerted jurisdiction over here that they did not have.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Mm-hmm. So when they asked President Trump who was going to run Venezuela, he said, what? We are.
Right.
Until such time as what? The people pick a viable leader. He just told us a code in there. He ain't talking about Venezuela. He talking about us over here, the tribes over here. But they using the Venezuelan story to pass the message in plain sight, in your face, behind your back.
Damn.
Now, the silver is critical because one, around Christmas time, Chase Manhattan, JP Morgan, closed 30,000 branches. Where's all these branches at?
Right.
Right? They got to be servicing somebody somewhere else other than us, because it can't be 30,000 Chase branches across this country.
Nah, it ain't not. Nah, Chase sitting down like that.
Right. So they have other means and outlets. That's just telling us by putting something out in the plain, blatant contradiction public like that. Right? That's telling us pay attention to this because it's finna tell you something else. This ain't really what you need to pay attention to, but the thing you need to pay attention to you is coming up, which takes us to the assault on Venezuela. The people that is applying the JP Morgan silver situation is not telling y'all that the whole European silver standard was called in by the debtors, which was the actual rightful heirs of Europe. When they did that, it created what's known as a financial vacuum in the silver industry. That means they took out of circulation such a massive amount that it naturally made them raise the value of it, but also decrease the supply of it. Right? This is what the silver controversy is. And then the oil, the petrodollar. Remember, the BRICS nations are literally building a dam financially to force the dollar back home.
Right.
In order to crash the dollar at home. I mean, a domestic crash of the dollar system, which is right now being manifest in bank closures and laying off people in the IRS, cut 30% of their staff after they had already cut another 35% of it a couple years ago. What they cutting back like that for? But then you have the conclusions of these accountings that the Doge team is doing. It's also telling them who is skimming off the top of our wealth in order to finance their opulent lifestyles. So if you're going to activate Nasara Jasara properly, you have to first know where everything that's going to be used as a backing for the financial system that has no such thing as interest or credit. You either got it or you don't got it. You either can afford it or you can't afford it. Right? Ain't no credit. Because credit creates what we call servitude debt serfs. The servitude debt serfs are people who's into somebody else's pocket and can't live their own life until they get out them people's pocket. This is what the music industry do to its artists. They keep them to the point where they can't use them no more and they can't make money on their own. Then they cut them loose with all their money in the music industry pocket. Right? So you seeing the whole thing, Moderno and all that, it's the same play that they played with Saddam Hussein.
Muhammad
with the same, with a lookalike, because he's a Saddam Hussein lookalike.
That's right.
Some people think it's the same actor. I don't think it's the same actor, but I think they came from the same casting call. That's when you call all the actors to play a part. Maduro was the leader of one of the cartels of Venezuela, who exiled the duly elected president. I think he went to the Middle East somewhere. And he'd been in exile for 3 or 4 years, and he was the president the people elected, but Maduro established a coup that ran him out of there. They reenacted the Obama administration when Trump was caught up in the Russiagate scandal. It's the same thing, but it's somewhere else because sometimes it's too close at home for us to really see it. So they have to show it to us away from home. If you're trying to get the mainland people to see what happened. Now, another thing that's tied to Maduro is the voting machines and who ordered them and what was the specs ordered on the machine, because they came from Venezuela. The 2020 election steal. So this is getting deeper and deeper because now it's forcing people to make moves. That was not a Russian ship that they captured. That's why Putin didn't demand the ship back. He demanded the people back. He want to try them over there because they're Ukrainians. And they wanted to bring the Russian ship to escalate military warfare between the United States and Putin. But Putin's equivalent of what used to be the KGB and the CIA are actively communicating the intelligence that's telling them how these people are trying to start the war. And this is how you can make a preemptive strike. We watching it play out in real time, but we don't know what we're looking at because it's too close to home. Now they playing it out at intervals and spaces. Not to mention, a lot of people think that they waking up the great Leviathan, the serpent of the sea. Right? And some people think that they're trying to harvest some of the blood of the dragon, which I would say would be a very horrible idea. If it's real dragon blood, there's no container you would be able to hold it in. It has to, true dragon's blood has to evaporate in the air, and it don't leave a trace behind. Like if our blood evaporated, it'll leave a charred residue. Dragon blood doesn't do that, but it's also acidic to the touch. So that would be a bad idea, trying to harvest some dragon's blood. The simulated dragon's blood that they make for ritual purposes doesn't even have 1/10 of the power that real dragon blood has, but you got to have to know how to handle mercury in order to know how to handle real dragon's blood. So I don't think they want to do that because sometimes the dragon blood is sentient. So it will pick up to perceive your ideas of how you intend to stop it, and it can alter and adjust in order to be able to go back to the dragon from which you took it. Because that's all they do, is it returns back to its source. And anything they try to stop it, it can eat through it. So it's a lot going on with the Venezuelan thing, more than what meet the naked eye. But what meet the naked eye is prepping you for what you haven't seen that's about to come.
Now, some people, before we go to the next video, so what is your thoughts on the silver refinery that they setting up in Tennessee so they can allegedly funnel this silver? And do you think JP Morgan don't got all the silver that he say that he been sitting on, that's all a host? But we always know that they don't really never have no, like the people that was running the fit, they ain't really never have no natural wealth really.
But JP Morgan's wealth is not predicated up on any of what they call reserve.
Okay.
The fiat dollar does not require anything to support it because it wouldn't be a fiat then.
That's right. Go ahead.
The word fiat means somebody said it got power, but it don't got power for real. It's an illusion.
That's right.
How do you give the illusion? What's the grand scale? You force people to trade in oil using the fake dollar. And by trading in something that's so critical to our industrial lifestyle, it gives the artificial life to the dollar. Right? But just like the dragon's blood, the oil has to return back to the earth. So the dollar then is traveling, because remember, it's just a dye marker in the water of our energy field. It's the green dye marker. Is why they call it the currency, because by watching the dollar, you can follow the current to the sea. And you can see the current as it flows within the field of the water, because you got a dye marker. You can follow the direction of the flow of the money. And when you learn criminal investigation and you trying to figure something out, the number one rule is follow the money.
Right.
Right? Follow the money if you want the MO. Right? Because the money is showing you the direction of the energy flow. The one who's benefiting 9.9 out of 10 is the one at the end of the money trail. They the ones that benefited the most. Right? So they're using the same principle, except they doing the reverse. They cutting off the money supply to the deep state. And in the open, they showing us what looked like Debo tactics.
Yeah, we taking it.
We took that.
Yeah.
But really, we're not taking nothing, because North, South, and Central America and Greenland is included in this. A lot of people don't know that. That is the collective of what we call Turtle Island.
That's right.
Canada and the United States got the same QSIP number. That means it's the same company. It's just two different parts of the same company. As we say in factory work, it's either in the trim department or it's in the chassis department. And that's where the majority of the car is assembled.
Wow.
So Canada is the chassis and America is the body shop. It's the trim shop where you put all of the stuff together on the inside of the car. Set the wires and for the sensors and all of that. And then when you get the chassis, you put the motor in and the parts that run. It's two different functions in the same company. Now remember, Queen Diallo has been putting it in the public domain following the tribal tradition that she took over Canada.
That's right. I
She
remember
couldn't take over Turtle Island. She could only take over a province because she's the ceremonial chief.
I remember it.
Right? The ceremonial tribes fill in where the actual tribe don't remember the culture. And we keep on moving to victory until all tribes is represented knowingly or unknowingly when when we restoring the land, every tribe has to be represented. And the Big Momma that speak up for the collective, she have to speak up for all tribes across the land, even if she don't like them motherfuckers.
Mm-hmm.
She still got to speak up for them because they're their own tribe. She don't got to like nothing about them. But to keep from being biased, no big eyes, no little U's, right? Don't take sides in other people's conflict. So she can't take sides. All she can do is say, if the tribe is still on the same bloodline, give them their shit. Right? And then the government, that's a corporation, is not really a government. You're going to know when we move back in power, when they start rounding up bar members. Bar members are not domestic legal advocates from our systems. They are barrister carryovers, and that's why they have to be bar members, because they have to be certified by the Crown. The Crown don't operate over here. They ain't supposed to, unless they run in the interim government. The interim government is temporary, right? And according to Noble Drew Ali, he was going to lead the European in power until when?
Till we wake up.
Until we learn how to run a government.
Mm-hmm.
Now, based on what I done seen from the young youth that's stepping up now, not only do we know how to run the government, we can revamp it and make it better, leaner, faster, stronger, and more productive and beneficial to the people.
That's indeed. Right.
All we got to do is kill the old system. The death of the old system is announced with the final collapse of the banking system and the mortgage system, because all of the mortgage is predicated upon fraud.
That's right.
Because there is no money. The bank never gives you anything of value.
Right.
They just write on a piece of paper how much you got to pay.
Right.
Right. So the banks can't own real estate. So therefore, even if they foreclose, they can't hold ownership of the property. So they can't sell it. That means they can seize it, but they can't sell it because it ain't theirs to sell. Why? Because banks don't own property.
Right.
The only property allowed to own is the physical building by which the institution does business. That's it. Right? Because that's the embassy. Now, if you don't know how an embassy works, you will never understand that every bank is an embassy. The embassy is what they call an enclave or a city-state that represents the interests of their origin country. It is a soil in the foreign land that operate under the foreign representatives' land law or common law. So the banks are pushing barrister law in cahoots with the courts. They are transacting business all day, every day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. They are continuously doing business on our behalf without our input, participation, knowledge, nor opportunity to object, which makes it a constructed fraud. You can't trade my shit without me knowing it, and it's not fraud. So by the definition of contract, when the fraud is discovered, it voids the contract on the prima facie case. That meaning on the first look, de novo, the first look on the new, right? The new look, when you revisit it, stare decisis, the prior ruling still stands as long as it hasn't been competently overturned. The old rules is called grandfather clauses. Grandfather the old rules in. Tribally, there is not a single tribe under the oral tradition that has renounced the oral tradition as the way by which the tribes collectively seek to restore balance to the land and reclaim the land from anybody who have paper contracts.
That's facts.
So if we grandfather in the tribal right from the day before Columbus came, we will be operating in what's called our territorial rights. We are enforcing, by putting it in the public domain, our territorial right to assert our jurisdiction over the land. Now, the message of the final count has to be given by the Black Madonna, meaning the Dark Mother who assumed the sacerdotal seat on behalf of the matriarchs of the land. And it's through this action that we reclaim our right to rule ourselves, because now we know how to run government. Thank you, Drew.
Yeah, you dropped
right. So now that we know how to run government at the close of the age and the dawning of the new age, we just wait for the mother and child, Big Momma and the baby, the Black Madonna, to show you and prove that we understood the assignment and effectuated the remedy following the tribal tradition, right? And put it in the public domain for all tribes to be able to access the information to realize that an ancient tribal right has been exercised to its limit to produce a present reorganization of all assets across the land in order to restore the matriarchy, rebuild the families, strengthen and tighten the family units, and to give us the resources by which all of the above is to be enforced and taken care of. So you count the days and you add the numbers in order to get to the destination. It's a formula, right? So you will see certain stuff and you will know it means something, but never stop to even attempt to figure out what it means. And so all the stuff we see with Maduro, with the government, the satire, it's political satire. It's Plato's Republic. It's the dynamic of politics or politricks playing out in the general public to give you the illusion of something that's not exactly what it is, but it's just a representative of something that's available. We got, remember, in the UNDRIP documents of the United Nations, it's telling us what's our rights. America got one called an AMDRIP, American Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People. In these, if you understand what your rights are, you don't need permission to exercise a right. You only have to exercise the right for it to be protected. We had a right to our oral traditions. So when we put it in the public domain following the oral tradition, the only people that can object is us. And we can only object on the fact as if it don't meet the qualified standard of a public notice. If all of the other information is verifiable and supported as fact. Roll the coin, Elder. What you got?
Somebody asked before we go to the next one, where does the Postmaster General fit into all of this?
The Postmaster General came in under European law. And the person who took the Postmaster General tribally was the guy named something Christopher. Right? He seized that seat. Now, from the colonizers' position, because you got two Postmaster Generals. One was represented by the tribes under the Continental Congress. This is the one that what's his name? Something Christopher is his last name, but he took that seat. And the other guy, Nathan-J. Gould, right?
Yeah.
He sees the Postmaster General flagship.
Is it Russell? Is it Russell?
Yeah, Russell. Right? Yeah, Russell J. Gould or something like that. Yeah. But he captured what's called the flag rights of the Continental Congress that produced the United States. right? So he caught it on the transition that nobody had filled the office. And that's called a vacant office. Upon the discovery of a vacant office, there's certain steps you got to take to seize the office. But these two postmasters was the ones that were supposed to negotiate the resolution to the Civil War. That's why you had two postmaster seats. The Civil War was the corporation known as the United States and General George Washington, who was actually a French general, not an American general, because America wasn't America yet.
Right.
And if he was a French general, that means that he derived his power from France. So when you realize Georgia became Georgia under Andrew Jackson, I think it was, requesting King George to create a military buffer zone to stop the tribes from supporting the Gullah War. That was the way that they was negotiating with Spain for Florida. And they used the protectorate, negotiate the protectorate right of the Louisiana Purchase with France. We wasn't instrumental in none of that. But all of the paperwork is available throughout historical referencing, right? From Andrew Jackson and asking King George to establish that military buffer zone and setting up Georgia, which is also the place of the Trail of Tears, which is also the origin point of what we call the paper genocide. And when they ran the Trail of Tears, they were saying an Indian train coming, and then everybody was like, we ain't getting on that damn Indian train. F their government. That's how we felt. They called us outlaws.
Hey, Rod, somebody was asking me about could you tell us about the orphan train? Because I was doing a little research on it, and they said they was sending this orphan train out to try to get us to adopt these foreigners so that they can inherit our rights. And then once we die off, because I noticed once you adopt a kid in their UCC commercial system, that kid is more of your kid than your blood kid, according to their UCC system. So what is your take on how they was using that orphan train to try to get us to adopt kids, these foreign kids, into our tribes, just similar to the Indian train?
Well, they wasn't soliciting us. They were soliciting the $5 Indians. And I'm mainly the European ones. And then you had a bunch of females that came from Europe that couldn't have children. It was barren. And so most of the babies came in from Europe after village raids by the Inquisition, right? When they was doing village raids, they was killing a lot of the adults. And remember, one of the spoils of war is the children. One of the original spoils of war is the children. And the purpose was for the children was supposed to be the servant of the house that captured them. This is the origin of your slaves, where slaves came from creating a working staff for the royal house that was loyal to the royal house because they grew up there. You know, as they grow up, they teach them different stuff. And this is what you call being cultured. Being cultured or being groomed. Now when they talk about grooming, they're talking about sexual grooming of a child. But originally, every husband had to groom his wife. That means teach her how to be the woman you need in your life versus letting the world teach her how to be the bitch that make you miserable. That's the difference. So when you used to come into the royal house, they put you with people that raised you up. And you had certain rights of royalty have that the peasants don't got, but you still classified as a peasant or a bastard. And that's why the bastard child was always looked down on. And another reason is because they don't know if it was a parthogenic birth or not. because the woman that's in charge of her parthenogenesis, she can make a male child off the DNA of all of the men she ever been with without the aid of a man. All she had to do has been had sex with a man. And she could be celibate for 30 years and make herself pregnant.
Hey, shout out Linda Turner for the super chat. Shout out Mimi for the super chat. Yo, they gonna take about 60% of that super chat. I'd rather you just send it straight to Raw. If you gonna send us a donation, I'm dropping Raw Cash App and the cash. Just send it straight to Raw because they gonna take $60 off that 100. But I mean, hey, it's much love though. We appreciate it though. Hey Rod, somebody said, have you had any updates on Larry Hoover before we roll that next clip?
No, everything around Larry Hoover is real hush hush. So I don't know. For all I know, Larry might be at home with his family playing dominoes with his sons. I don't know. I've got no information that's been, but it will be some when the time comes. A whole lot of this stuff is about to spill out into the open to the point where it's undeniable because we asserting our tribal rights to reclaim the jurisdiction, and we are watching the military facilitate us reclaiming our jurisdiction as the law of the land overrides the admiralty jurisdiction that we are overthrowing in real time.
All right, we got this next part.
This black woman owns the entire United States of America. They know
the anti-black algorithm did not want you to know that the US just bombed Nigeria. But this news matters to all of us, so give me 2 minutes to explain. On Christmas Day, Trump authorized the US military to carry out an airstrike in northwest Nigeria. The US claims this strike was apparently in retaliation against ISIS fighters who were in the area.
So you got all of these genocides of black people going on around the world. Christians, as they want to say, being murdered, but Donald Trump don't see them. He only sees the one in Nigeria. And let me tell you why, Art. I know you're familiar with Ibrahim Traoré and the Sahel Alliance. Ibrahim Traoré is the president of Burkina Faso. You also have the president of Niger, Chiani, and you have General Goita of Mali, right?
Right.
The real reason, Art, and I need you to get this, the real reason Donald Trump wants to invade northern Nigeria, Art, has nothing to do with black Christians. Nothing to do with my Christian brothers and sisters in the north. Northern Nigeria sits under what country, Art? Northern Nigeria sits right under Niger, one of the 3 countries in the Sahel Alliance. Nigeria borders Niger. And why is Niger so important, Art? Who is the #1 supplier of uranium in the world? Niger. Do you know what you need uranium for, Art? Nuclear missiles, nuclear bombs, nuclear technology, nuclear warheads. Niger is the #1 supplier of uranium. And in the nuclear age, Art, uranium is.
Hey, I just got a quick question on that particular part, Rod. So with the arm race, and it seemed like the Cold War is still kind of going on from like this race for technology. Do you think that America will remain, because like all of these people that hate us, it's so many people that hate us because of these deep state suckers who've been running the country for so long. Do you think that these guys are out to stop they hate America and they just want to blow the people up or get rid of the people? Or are they after the rogue government? Are they blaming the whole America, or are they blaming just the rogue government that been over America? Because this is our country, but we have been ran by infiltrators and rogue government. So do the whole country take the blame for the suckers, the aristocrat suckers and deep state suckers like Hillary Clinton, who are criminals?
Well, let me answer your question with a question, which I don't normally do, but it's relevant. Right. When the Israelis moved in Palestine, did the Palestinians see all Israelis as a problem?
No.
But did the Israelis see all Palestinians as a problem?
Yep.
Okay, now your leadership determines how your country appears to the public. If they drop a bomb, they're not dropping a bomb 9 out of 10 on the leadership. They dropping them in cities where people live at.
Right.
Right. So if they get mad at our leadership and they want to do something about it, they're not going to attack the leadership. They're going to attack the people in the country.
Yeah, boy, that's cold.
It's military 101, the basics.
Yeah.
Right? Because don't nobody stand across a field with a musket no more and say, let's fight.
Nope.
Or they don't ride in facing each other on horseback with swords no more, or jousting javelins. That's all ancient warfare.
Right.
Now they fight from a distance by shooting bombs.
Right.
Across waterway. Right. So when you talk about, he was talking about the production of uranium. I think he said uranium.
Yeah, uranium. Yeah.
Right. So, but he didn't tell you that Nigeria also is one of the number one or major manufacturers of lithium, which is also a critical component to nuclear development.
Yeah. And
now, we ain't really worried about that because nuclear energy is ancient now. It's so outdated now.
I see that. I can see
right. Now you got to worry about hydrogen energy, which is derived from water. You got to adjust for what they call electromagnetic energy in the atmosphere or kinetic energy that can be harvested just out of the air, or what they would call free electricity. Right. So the nuclear power, which can accelerate the production by speeding up turbines faster in the production of electricity. So, but you still need to understand physics in order to understand how to not need nuclear energy, because it's not the cleanest form of energy. It's not new. They didn't find ancient nuclear sites all over the world where we was manufacturing nuclear weapons. This is why I tell you, you got to study the Vamanus Wars, the Anunnaki Wars, the Pyramid Wars. They ain't talking about warfare with rocks. They talking about ships flying across the sky shooting lasers.
Yep. Yep.
Right? They're just using the ancient language that it doesn't seem as. So now instead of shooting lasers, they throwing thunderbolts.
Yeah.
You see?
Yep. Yeah. They use based on what they could describe back then to describe what they were seeing.
Well, we have to figure out what they're talking about by understanding the difference in the time frame and asking ourselves, well, what would we call this in modern times?
Right.
Right. We wouldn't call it a thunderbolt. We would call it a laser, what it is.
Yeah. 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 Scorpion. They say, scorpion sting. It sting like a scorpion. It's like a missile or something.
Yeah, those are called stun guns.
Yeah. Yeah.
Scorpion stingers.
Yeah. Stun guns. That makes sense. All right. This next part is a 7 minutes long. This is the first part that you told to the AI you told me to do about the jujitsu.
Let's go.
All right, so then the next 7 minutes will be about the Empress, right? And then it goes
roll the corn.
First, this is the first one right here.
Courts look grand. Robes, gavels, columns. On TV, they serve justice with flair. But that image is mostly an illusion. Most places you go aren't true courts. They're administrative tribunals, more like a manager's office than halls of justice. The illusion is about to be shattered. Keller vs. Potomac Electric, 1923, where the Supreme Court decided that setting public utility rates in D.C. was an administrative act, not a judicial one. The D.C. courts weren't true constitutional courts. They were legislative courts, created by Congress to manage, not judge. Their authority was administrative, not judicial, just extensions of Congress, not independent courts. Keller revealed the illusion of independent courts, and it only got worse. Think Keller was a one-off? Enter Federal Radio Commission versus General Electric, 1929. GE wanted a radio license renewal. The Federal Radio Commission said no. GE appealed, and the D.C. courts sided with them. The Supreme Court refused to hear the case on its merits, declaring the lower court's decision wasn't judicial, it was administrative. The lower court was labeled a superior and revising administrative agent. A supposed court of justice was officially just an administrative agent. This cemented the precedent. Congress could create courts that were judicial in name only. These courts weren't part of the constitutional judicial branch. They were tools for enforcing federal regulations. Their decisions weren't acts of justice, but acts of administration. The separation of powers was fundamentally betrayed. When a judge rules on a government agency case, are they an impartial arbiter or just another administrator? The FRC case suggests the latter. The gavel had become a rubber stamp. How did we get from the founders' vision to this bureaucratic maze? It started with the Judiciary Act of 1789, which set up the federal court system. The Constitution created Article 3 courts, independent, with life tenure and protected salaries. But Congress also created Article 1 courts, legislative or administrative courts, to handle specific issues. This created a two-tiered system, constitutional courts and administrative courts. Over time, especially in the 20th century, administrative courts grew to handle most cases. Administrative law began to overshadow constitutional law. The result? A bait and switch. We were promised independent courts, but got a system dominated by administrative bodies. These bodies aren't bound by strict due process. They operate under a presumption of administrative correctness. The government agency is assumed right until proven otherwise. The framework for a parallel legal system was laid in 1789. It looks like a court system, but functions like a bureaucracy. And we've been living in it ever since. Remember learning about the three branches of government? Legislative, executive, judicial, a neat triangle of checks and balances. In reality, the rise of the administrative state created a shadowy fourth branch, the vast network of agencies like the IRS, EPA, and SEC. These agencies have their own courts, administrative law courts. In these courts, the agency is prosecutor, judge, and jury. An agency employee, not an independent judge, presides. Separation of powers, gone. Dispute with the IRS? You go to tax court, an administrative body, not a constitutional court. The judge's job is to administer tax law, not debate its constitutionality. The system is designed for compliance, not justice. Supreme Court cases like Keller and FRC confirm. These are administrative functions, not judicial ones. The branches of government merge. The agency writes, enforces, and judges its own rules. Judicial review is often limited to checking if the agency followed its own procedures. The court isn't asking, is this constitutional? Just, did the paperwork check out? If courts are administrative, what law are they enforcing? Contract law. From social security numbers to driver's licenses, you're entering contracts with government and corporate entities. You agree to follow their rules in exchange for privileges. These aren't constitutional rights, they're contractual obligations. In court for a traffic ticket, it's not about your right to travel. It's about whether you broke the contract of your driver's license. The court's job is to enforce the terms of that contract. That's why courts focus on procedure and statutes, not philosophical justice. The judge is an administrator. Did you follow the rules you agreed to? Arguing broad constitutional principles in traffic court gets you nowhere. The judge's jurisdiction is limited to enforcing the statute. By participating in society, we've unknowingly waived many constitutional protections for administrative contracts. The government is a corporation offering services with terms and conditions. Courts are its enforcement arm, ensuring everyone keeps their side of the bargain. They're not courts of justice. They're courts of commercial administration. So here we are, administrative tribunals dressed as courts, managing a system of contracts we never really chose. The independent judicial branch has been sidelined by bureaucracy. What can we do? First, understand the game. Knowledge is power. When you see courts as administrative bodies enforcing contracts, your perspective shifts. Don't ignore the rules. They're enforced ruthlessly. But learn the real rules. Administrative procedure and contract law, not constitutional law. This reality has profound consequences. Without genuine judicial review, there's no brake on government power. Rights become privileges, granted or revoked at the state's discretion. The Constitution becomes a relic, admired but not followed. Reclaiming our judicial system requires public awareness and demanding true independent courts. It's not easy. Undoing a century of precedent and bureaucracy is a massive task. But the alternative is to keep living in the illusion, thinking we're free citizens when we're just subjects in a corporate state. And that's the forbidden truth.
Man, that was a cold piece there, Rod. Yeah, I appreciate you for sending me all the notes for that. I put that together off the notes Rod sent me. Say, Rod, so you want to go in on that, Rod? That's some heavy stuff, man.
Yeah, so based on that, remember the Chevron deference? The Chevron deference was taking the power of the administrators away when they overturned it. It was enforced under Chevron in order for administrators to operate as specialists in a particular field of government administration, and they was making rules up as they go because they the specialists, right? There was also another case before the Supreme Court about administrative law judges. Why is this important? They are all occupational operatives of a foreign government. They're not operating on behalf of we the people. They're operating on behalf of the Crown of England and France. Right, because King George was a French king that chartered the first bar in 1863 in Savannah, Georgia. Right, so they're showing you how they are masquerading as legit, hiding behind fancy buildings and robes. The Constitution says our trials are supposed to be public. They not public, they public access. That's a difference. Public trial means that you're supposed to, like for instance, a court TV channel, it's supposed to be running 24 hours a day out of every courtroom. Every time the court open up, it's supposed to be a channel that shows the public what's going on in that court. But if they showed us what was really going on, we would catch the fraud 100 times faster. So they gave us access, public access to a closed trial. Public access, you would be allowed to take your phone in there, your camera in there. You're not allowed to record the proceedings, right? That's because they doing secret squirrel stuff.
Illegal, yep.
Right. Well, it depends on what you mean by illegal. It's unconstitutional, but I don't know if it's illegal because remember, they got a right to an administrative court system.
Mm-hmm.
But the administrative court system is only supposed to review codes and statutes.
Contract,
right?
pretty much. Mm-hmm.
Right. So the judiciary or Article 3 court is the one that's supposed to hear what's called criminal complaints. There are no Article 3 courts hearing criminal complaints. because all state court criminal state cases become federal civil cases once you bypass that state Supreme Court. When you move your case from state to federal, it's no longer a criminal case. It's now you dealing with contracts.
Commercial.
Because you filing a lawsuit. Right? It's civil litigation in federal court. It's a lawsuit. You're suing the corporation for whatever you put in your habeas corpus. Right? So now that you're in the federal courts, they don't call it a criminal complaint no more. That's because it's no longer under Article 1 administrative jurisdiction. It's under Article 3, which is what we call the de jure court. The Article 3 court is the constitutional court. But what we don't know is there are other constitutional court called tribal courts. But they only deal with tribal aspects. They have more of a right to try you for what's called a criminal complaint than an administrative court, because they're guaranteed under Article 3. And this is how you know the fraudulent court versus the real court. And this is why the judge is going to end up going to jail, because they all operating for a foreign agency, but none of them registered under the Foreign Agent Act. Now, for reference, Muammar Gaddafi offered the wealth of his nation and $5 billion to Louis Farrakhan. The government told Farrakhan that if he took the money without registering as a foreign agent under the Foreign Agent Act and the Trading with the Enemies Act, that he couldn't receive the money. Now, at no time was any of the senators or congressmen that was being lobbied by foreign interests told to register under the Foreign Agent Act to receive whatever the foreign interest government or group was giving them as a lobby, right? So this is showing you two different things about foreign agent. They get to decide who's supposed to register as a foreign agent, and they have a standard and a criteria. If you speak up on behalf of the tribes, then you're not supposed to receive any financial support from anybody except the tribes. That's in their contracts, right? The tribes are not allowed to help each other, because if we get caught helping each other, the government crashed down on the whole tribe of both that was helping each other. We had to build tribes so structured and organized that they can't infiltrate, and they still infiltrated because we didn't know that they look like us, but they not us. This is where you've seen Bobby Hemming was talking about Empress Verdiasi, right? Empress Verdiasi she didn't sit in the sacerdotal seat to reclaim the matriarchal land because she had been infiltrated by people that look like us that ain't us, that sabotaged her whole program.
She said it.
Now, I don't know these people. I never met them, and I don't know their names, but I know they was there. And the reason I know they was there is because she only went so far, then she stopped. That's what made me know that she had got infiltrated. She would never had stopped if she wasn't carrying the enemy in her camp. She would have went on to secure the whole bag, so to speak. So once you get infiltrated, if you making progress, you have to stop. So everywhere you see the leadership of a tribe taken from that tribe, that means they was making forward progress, and the government had to stop them in order to stop us from rising up and remembering that before a colonist ever came, we was already here. Before Mongolian came across the Bering Straits, we was already here, right? Before we had the Chinese road in Central America, we was already here. When there were no mounds or pyramids on the land, we was already here.
Facts.
Because we've been here so long, here wasn't here until we built it. And this is why America is truly the old world, and that the rest of the world was developed by people from America. But the out of Africa narrative stems from a Eurocentric perspective of history, and this is why they gave you what's they call it, Tartaria and Barbaria, which is east and west of Rome, because Rome is the central point by which this perceptual viewpoint is seen through Roman eyes. The Roman eyes are the Bible eyes. The ones who carry the Bible see the world from a romantic point of view. Romance is not what we think it is. Romance is actually another term for a bromance, where an old man seduces a young boy. Right? Once he seduced the young boy, he sodomized him to take away his birthright of rulership. Right? By rupturing his root chakra. Now, the thing being is we had to figure out who was next in line. Empress Verdiasi was Red House. So if the Red House stopped because they was infiltrated, now it go back to the Blue House for the final resolution. If they have a competent chief that could show who did it, what they did, where they came from, explain how it was done, and then tell why. Who, what, when, where, why, and how. Right? When those things can all be met, and all of the tribes have access to the information, every tribe don't believe the same thing. We not supposed to. Every tribe doesn't have the same standards by which they operate. We all supposed to be different in our own unique way. You could dress a blood up like a Crip, he's still gonna be a blood and heart. You could dress a Crip up like a blood, he's still gonna be a Crip at heart. Right? So you gotta realize that the cover can change, but what's in the heart remains the same. Right? So across tribes, the love can still be there. We just wearing different uniforms, fighting the same war. And as soon as we realize we ain't supposed to be fighting each other in order to overthrow those on top of us, as Tupac would say, my destiny to overthrow those on top of me, right? So in order to overthrow the ones on top of you, you got to know who you are. So this is why I told people, Bloods has always been a federally recognized tribe. They just didn't tell the Bloods. And they moved out all the Indians on the reservation. Right? Me and Elder showed that. We didn't just tell you, we showed you the proof.
Details. And
the Crips was from Northern California. They used to call them crabs. That's how we knew who they was, because the Bloods call them crabs. So when we did the tribe, we found out that they was also replaced by $5 Indians. Europeans masquerading as Indians. And then we was able to find where they supposed to be at. This is where you had conflicts on the land, because you got two people that's strong in pride and power that's not going to bow to each other. And then you have outsiders standing in one camp, throwing rocks in the other camp, pretending to be there. They're supposed to be there. Right? So now we fighting each other instead of fighting what we was put together for. This community revolution in progress. These brothers looking out on darkness, waiting on the return of the sun to rise in the west once again, because they didn't tell us that the map was flipped.
That's right.
South is up, north is down. East is left, west is right.
That's right.
So once you see it from its proper perspective, you realize that the motherland, right, or the Queensland is on the top of the earth, shaped like the Ashanti stool, which is a sacerdotal seat, right? And they call it the outback. Outback, out behind your gown, your ass out, in the back. Right? So she's sitting on the stool with her ass out, but her front covered, and she holding the baby. And you know how our sister is built, and that explains why her ass out.
Right?
Because it was supposed to have been a woman, not a man.
So Rod, pretty much dealing with the judicial system and them setting up the Federal Reserve System and it being based all on contracts. A lot of the contracts they get us into, it's like it's not by force, but it's like, oh, you can't do this unless you got this. Like it's like you can't buy or sell. Yeah, like you don't got to drive. Like you drive.
Right.
Go ahead.
They call it adhesion contracts, right? Mm-hmm. They don't accept you exercising the right. That's how you know they don't belong here.
Yeah, they criminals. Go ahead.
Look, the Supreme Court ruled over and over that the police ain't supposed to compel you to identify who you are with ID. The police say, the statutes say you got to identify when I pull you over with identification.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're looking at administrators and the police and the judges at the local level going directly against legislators and judiciary and violating the Supreme Court order. The Supremacy Clause say they can't make a rule that violates your constitutionally protected rights.
Right.
That's why traffic courts can't hear constitutional matters. It's not a constitutional court. It's Article 1, not Article 3. Now, you got something called voir dire, which is the intermittent questioning for the purpose of determining the facts. Right? And in the case of the voir dire, you're in a dialogue, you're requesting a dialogue with the judge in order to verify what jurisdiction you under. When you start going along them lines, they normally call a recess and try to get you to get a lawyer so that the bar member can facilitate you through the process of surrendering to their system, because he's the competent official that represents your interests, according to that person sitting on the bench. Now, the problem come in is irreconcilable conflict of interest. When you say an irreconcilable, that means that there's no remedy that can be made up to fix this problem, right? The irreconcilable conflict of interest is the fact that the prosecutor is a bar member, the judge is a bar member, 9 out of 10, the clerk is a bar member, and then the defense attorney is a bar member. According to subject matter, this is a matter between barristers, and you, a civilian, have nothing to do with the case at hand.
Right.
You have nothing to do with barrister matters. Why? You're not a member of the bar. That's a conflict of interest that cannot be reconciled. Well, if that's the conflict of interest that can't be reconciled, according to day law, what is the remedy for an irreconcilable conflict of interest? Total dismissal. It's like ruling on something that doesn't have a law to it.
Right.
But if they can get you to submit to the contractual language of statute, code, then you don't have to argue public law. Public law and code and statute are not the same. Public law
Right.
is foundation rooted in what's called the common law. The common law was the law of the land prior to colonization that put us under the jurisdictionality of maritime and admiralty. Maritime and admiralty is where you get your squatters' rights and salvage rights from. The salvage rights is the right to claim what you discover lost at sea. Your squatter's rights is your right to squat on what you've recovered from the sea without nobody taking it from you, for you can catalog it as your winnings. That's what they get the squatter rights from, right? And it comes from, it's called squatter rights because it normally comes from a discovery of a new land, and you had to sit in the squatting position while you wait on the ships to come.
Yeah, that's interesting about the how they got this system set up to where it's like, oh, you voluntary compliance. You gonna well, you don't gotta do it, but if you don't do it, you ain't gonna get no food, or you ain't gonna be able to drive, or you ain't gonna be able to do this. And so it's like you said, adhesion contracts. It's all based on scare tactics. And if you don't go in there and you don't know nothing, you pretty much food for the bar.
Okay, now they got something called the Dearest doctrine. They can't, if they force you into a contract under duress, it nullifies the contract.
That's right.
If they lure you by deception into a contract, it nullifies the contract.
That's right.
Right? The Maxima law says fraud vitiates all contract. I mean, it's voided before it's ever a contract, even if they write it up as a contract. The fraud made it void on its face. It's automatically void. You cannot enter into contracts under duress or deception. The adhesion contract comes with a long list of fine print that most people never gonna read. Right? So we don't know, most of the time we don't know what that fine print say. We just know our baby need a social security card to go to school. I need my driver's license to get them back and forth and cash my checks.
Right.
Right. So you forced to use these documents to acquire these documents. They force you into an adhesion contract, a non-consensual contract that's one-sided. Right. The term in law they use is I forgot the word. I forgot the term, but it's a one-sided contract. It's a one-sided complaint, right? Now, when they rule on it, any ruling is called an arbitrary ruling. That means they just winging it. They don't really got the power, but they just ruled it because they sitting in the position that look like the power. The arbitrary ruling. I mean, they just took it up on themselves to assert power that they don't have.
Hey, I heard one of the ancestors say, one of the master teachers, Taj Sharik Bey, say, if we do sign, what's your take on this? Signing, if you do sign with them, reserve your rights. Like he's talking about like a UCC-1.
Okay, now that's called, that's called playing the paper game.
Okay.
That's literally called playing the paper game. That means that you're in a system that's operating off this paperwork and you haven't figured out yet how to get from under it. But you do know that you are aware enough to know that any contract signed under duress is void. Therefore, you could put U.D for under duress or all rights reserved, meaning that just because I signed this paper don't mean I surrender any rights.
Right.
That's because you playing the paper game with them. We passed that. We trying to get rid of their ass.
Yeah, it's completely. Right.
We don't want to play their paper game. That's why we're using the oral tradition and putting it out in the public for all of the tribes to see. Because now we can explain to them, following this oral tradition, and we've been watching Rod Hayes, Empress Redbird, following the oral tradition of reclaiming everything on the land in real time for the last 5 years. Never deviated, never stopped, all the way to now. Now everything is done. And it's always facilitated by the birth of a child. And then the child, the new royal heir has to be presented to the public by a competent Big Momma. It's already sat in the sacerdotal seat. And that's what they call the heralding of the age.
All right.
So
hey, we're gonna play this. We're gonna play this other clip because we got another 7-minute clip, and then we'll
roll the
commentary on that, and then we can get out of here. But this the one on the this the one we need to watch right here.
The Turner heirs legal battle is a window into the struggle for Native American land rights in the 19th century United States. 2 Supreme Court cases, one in 1848, the other in 1850, centered on land granted to Henry Turner, a Tunica tribe member, by the Spanish before the Louisiana Purchase. The Turner heirs argued that the U.S. was bound by treaty to honor this Spanish land grant. Their fight tested whether the U.S. would respect property rights established by previous colonial powers. The cases unfolded during a period of aggressive westward expansion and Indian removal, making the Turner claim a bold act of resistance. The first case, the heirs of Turner, Tunica versus United States, offered hope that the U.S. might honor its promises. But the government quickly challenged the outcome, leading to a second Supreme Court showdown. These cases became a microcosm of the larger conflict between U.S. expansion and its obligations to indigenous peoples. The Turner heirs' struggle was not just about land, it was about the recognition of native rights in the face of relentless national growth. Their story set the stage for a century of legal battles over native land and sovereignty. In 1848, the Supreme Court sided with the Turner heirs, validating the Spanish land grant and affirming that the U.S. must honor property rights established under previous governments. This decision was a rare victory for Native Americans, recognizing their right to hold matriarch law. The court's ruling was based on the principle that property rights survive a change in sovereignty, a glimmer of hope for indigenous land claims. The Turner heirs' win suggested that treaties and prior grants could be legally protected even against political pressure, but this victory was fragile, standing in stark contrast to the era's prevailing mood of westward expansion and native dispossession. The legal foundation for the decision was quickly challenged by the government, which feared a precedent for other native land claims. The Turner case briefly showed that the rule of law could protect indigenous rights. Yet the celebration was short-lived as the government prepared to overturn the decision. The stage was set for a dramatic reversal that would reshape native land rights. In 1850, the Supreme Court reversed itself, ruling against the Turner heirs and invalidating their land claim. The court now focused on technicalities, arguing the Spanish grant was incomplete and didn't meet U.S. legal requirements. This decision stripped the Turner family of their land and sent a chilling message. Even documented native land rights could be erased by shifting legal interpretations. The ruling prioritized federal control over honoring past agreements, making it far harder for native peoples to defend land claims based on prior grants. The Turner heirs' journey from victory to loss became a cautionary tale for all Native Americans seeking justice in U.S. courts. The 1850 decision set a precedent that undermined the security of indigenous property rights. It revealed how legal victories could be swiftly undone by political interests. The Turner cases became a stark lesson in the vulnerability of native land under U.S. law. The Turner decision sent shockwaves through Indian country, especially among southeastern tribes like the Choctaw. The 1850 reversal showed that even documented land titles could be invalidated, casting doubt on the security of treaty-guaranteed allotments. The government's willingness to undermine native property rights weakened tribal bargaining power and fueled dispossession. The 5 civilized tribes, who had adopted American legal practices, saw that playing by U.S. rules offered no guarantee of justice. The Turner case became a tool for justifying further erosion of tribal land, paving the way for policies like the Dawes Act that broke up communal holdings. The cases exposed the fundamental power imbalance in federal Indian law. Ideals of fairness clashed with the reality of expansionist politics. For Native nations, the lesson was clear. Legal rights were only as strong as the government's willingness to honor them. The Turner Saga fostered deep distrust of federal promises and shaped Native strategies for generations. It marked a turning point, showing that land and sovereignty could be lost not just by force, but by legal maneuvering. The fight for secure land rights would continue, shaped by the legacy of these cases. The Turner cases became foundational in federal Indian law, influencing later Supreme Court decisions. The 1850 reversal foreshadowed cases like United States versus Winans and Lone Wolf versus Hitchcock. Winans recognized that tribes retained rights not explicitly surrendered in treaties, a contrast to the fragility shown in Turner. But Lone Wolf versus Hitchcock in 1903 took the Turner logic to its extreme, declaring Congress had absolute power to break treaties with tribes. This plenary power meant that even solemn agreements could be swept aside by Congress at will. The Turner case showed how technicalities could erase Native rights. Lone Wolf made clear that no treaty was truly secure. Together, these cases created a legal landscape where tribal rights could be recognized one moment and extinguished the next. The reserved rights doctrine from Winans offered hope, but the shadow of congressional power loomed large. The Turner legacy is a story of both fleeting recognition and enduring vulnerability. It set the stage for a century of legal battles over the meaning and limits of Native sovereignty. Two concepts define the legal world the Turner heirs faced: the trust relationship and plenary power. The trust doctrine says the U.S. must act in tribes' best interests, protecting their lands and rights. Sometimes tribes have used this to hold the government accountable for mismanagement. But the same doctrine has justified harmful, paternalistic policies like forced assimilation and land allotment. Plenary power, established in cases like Lone Wolf, gives Congress near total authority over Indian affairs. In theory, this power should align with the trust responsibility. In practice, it often overrides tribal interests. Courts have rarely intervened when Congress acts against tribes, calling such issues political questions. The Turner decision exemplifies this contradiction. The government claimed to protect Native rights while using its power to take them away. This tension remains at the heart of federal Indian law, shaping every fight for land and sovereignty. The Turner heirs' struggle still echoes in today's battles for Native land and sovereignty. Their cases laid the groundwork for modern legal fights over treaty rights and tribal jurisdiction. Tribes now use the trust doctrine and reserved rights to defend their interests, but the threat of plenary power persists. International law is increasingly invoked, framing indigenous rights as human rights, though U.S. courts remain resistant. The Turner legacy is a paradox, a system that promises protection but reserves the power to dispossess. The fight for land and justice continues in courts, Congress, and Native communities. The determination of the Turner heirs lives on in every tribe that refuses to let its rights be extinguished. Their story is a reminder that the struggle for justice is far from over.
No, there had to be a rig. Go ahead, Rod. There had to be a rig that for them to overturn it after they've approved it at first. It's like
they actually
came back and said, "Oh yeah, well." Go ahead.
Yeah, they actually, that's what Empress Verdiasi used to win her case, right? So they had to acknowledge it in order for her to be successful as she was. We all know she was, because we also also stemmed from the same case from the heirs to Henry Turner, right? And remember, it was also a grandfather treaty that preceded the Louisiana Purchase. Because you got to remember, when the original land allotment of the Vatican was assigned, most of the Louisiana territory was Spanish controlled, even though the Spanish had not entered yet. Right? And it was during the negotiations of the Treaty of New Orleans with the tribes that the French took the protectorate detail in order for them to use the port of Nola for the transport of goods and and people, I guess. Anyway, so once the Louisiana Purchase was effectuated, the French government sold the Louisiana Treaty to the United States. We got to remember that. That's important. And the United States, which is a corporation now, but which was it was forming from the Continental Congress. That's why the presidential succession, starting with John Hanson to George Washington, then George Washington is acknowledged as the first president. Under the Continental Congress, we had multiple presidents, but it wasn't until after what they called the first Constitutional Convention that George Washington became the president on the back of the Constitution written in the blood of Crispus Attucks. Right? Now, this contract is where we get the George Washington challenge from. That at the end of 200 years, if we mix you niggas up, you ain't gonna know from which side of the water you came. Right? This is where you come in with the reclassification. It's the scrambling of the minds of the people. You keep telling them what you want them to be. They know who they is, even if they don't say it out loud, because it might cause them to get lynched. But they know who they is. And the grandmamas and the mamas is going to keep it in the minds of the babies in the form of the redemption songs that's whispered in the ear of the babes by the young mothers. Because the soldiers are going to be born because we were still at war. And some of these soldiers that started all as pawns in the game is going to evolve in military understanding to the degree where he becomes a master strategist who can offer his strategic advancements over the corporation by territorial rights, subjugating and overturning the admiralty jurisdiction. And now you got ISIS on the land. Because ISIS is on the land. Big Momma is home, having reclaimed her seat. So now, on behalf of all the tribes, we just waiting on Big Momma to sit in her sacerdotal seat and show the world, which is a metaphor for a bigger formula. As above, so below. As within, so without.
Shout out Dr. Kia Pruitt in the building. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about Empress, the Empress. Yep, that last AI tape was about that case because we got it's a little short right here where Bobby Hennett said that
woman owns the entire United States of America. They know it, and to keep her quiet, they had to give her Monroe, Louisiana. When is she gonna be in town? Anybody know when the Empress is coming? Thanksgiving, right?
Yeah. So
they gave in court when they gave her the land. Go ahead.
Right. Now remember, when she stopped her advance on the corporate government, the next Big Momma can't stop until she sit in the sacerdotal seat. The sacerdotal seat is not in DC. It was in Philadelphia.
That's right.
The audacity of one of these Big Mommas to walk up in this building with these people's security there. Walk up there and sit on that seat while security telling you no. Knowing that as soon as enough of the tribal mothers remember, they're going to come out in mass support to serve the eviction on the corporation. Because they already Big Momma home. We just got to remember our culture. It's right there in our face. Right? So now, since the baton was passed from one empress, it got to go to another empress. But she got to be Blue House. She can't be Red House. Because the Red House got infiltrated. right? And since the Red House got infiltrated, don't mean the Blue House didn't get infiltrated. It just means that you had to keep passing the baton from Big Momma to Big Momma until one of them sat on the seat. And we finally got there.
Yeah.
So that's what we're looking at.
Another thing too, Raw, is I got a video out on the Empress Radici talking about how she got infiltrated and how that when she was going to file charges over in the international courts, right before that, 2 days, the feds raided her house and stole all of her money. Like she didn't even have enough money to even get out of the country. They confiscated all of her like documents.
How long is the video?
It's about 7 minutes. I was gonna cut it, but it's like 7. The video is like 20-some minutes on the video side. It's called the Empress Radici with Bobby Hemmett. Bobby Hemmett. It's the longer version of the tape I just played. It's on the video side. I'll link it in the descriptions on this video the show. But she go like 7 minutes and talk about breaking down how right before she was about to go file, like after all this stuff that we just talked about with the AI and with the Supreme Court, she was finna go when they revoked it. She was finna go over them to international courts, and 2 or 3 days before she was about to get on the plane to go to international courts, the FBI raided her house, all of her businesses. They stole like a $250,000 worth of her money that she had in different locations, to where she couldn't even go. And because, like you said, we were at war. We at war with these people. So, and then when she go to try to, hey, what's up? Like, how do I get my money or make a complaint about it? They say, oh, we don't know nothing about it. Like they had like the raid never happened. And look, they were supposed to notify the sheriff because the FBI can't really arrest nobody. They won't tell nobody that. So they had to notify the sheriff before they came to raid the Empress. They didn't even notify the sheriff, so they broke all kind of guidelines, because that's why you always, when you see the feds, the sheriff always be with them, because the sheriff's got to make the sheriff is really the real police. The FBI not really police. They are foreign agency. Yeah, that's right. Go ahead.
Yeah, sometimes they come with marshals. The marshals is the real federal police. They're the real federal police. The sheriff he got a county, right? And back in the day, you might have had a sheriff that might have had 4 or 5 counties. But now there's so many people that they've gave a county to each sheriff. But back in the day, a sheriff could be over a sizable portion of land, like a game warden. Right? The game wardens, the only reason why they here is because they was established to stop the colonizers from slaughtering all the damn animals. That's what created game wardens. Somebody had to stop the colonizers from basically extincting every native species of the land. So they created the game wardens to stop them. And that's why their number one thing is poaching. And if they catch you poaching, they don't have to arrest your ass. They can light your ass up.
Right? Yeah, they take your boat, your car, they take your truck. Man, these people
they don't need a warrant because you already on their territory. They operating from the law of the land. They're not operating from admiralty jurisdiction. And this is the same as cattle rustling laws. Cattle and rustling laws is derived from the rules that the tribes had for having livestock and owning your own personal asset of livestock. Every tribe didn't deal in livestock. And that's how you had different tribes, like the Buffalo tribe dealt in buffalo, livestock. You couldn't come into this tribe's buffalo territory and run all of their buffalo to your territory. That wasn't permitted because the Buffalo clan had a right to stop you with death if need be. Right? So this is where all of those DNR rules is different from regular law enforcement rules because they're not derived from the corporation. They derive from the tribal law of the land, and they got different consequences than common judicial law that we experience on a regular basis. Game warden to light your ass up. He catch you shooting a borderline extinct animal. They won't even ask you no questions. Light your ass up. Go out to Yellowstone and shooting at one of them protected animals like the wolf, and let them see you. They gonna light your ass up. They ain't gonna ask you, freeze you under arrest. Now, if you already killed it and they catch you with it on the truck, they might arrest your ass. But while you in the act of killing it, they're not gonna arrest you. They're gonna kill your ass, stop you from killing it.
That makes sense. They more guarded than the police dog. Like.
If you go to Texas, man, anybody in the chat from Texas, tell me if I'm wrong. If you go to Texas and you go in somebody's yard with a horse and try to leave with that motherfucker, they not finna tell you freeze. They're gonna light your ass up and not gonna do a day in jail. Cattle rustling law still apply.
Yeah.
That's comes from the tribal law of the land. It don't come from this regulations of the corporation.
Mm-hmm. Hey man, we had 7,000 people on tonight. We got about 2,000 on right now, I think. Everybody hit that like, hit that subscribe button right now if you're new to the channel. Everybody on, we got everybody on. Hey, everybody send Chief $5. If you can't, send them $1. If you guys got it, send them 100. Right? Put them in the game till the next time we come back on. We got his Cash App and PayPal on the screen. Hey, I got another question for you, Chief. So it's a lot of people now, they get, since they found out the money, the fiat, you know, this fiat we've been operating, we don't really got no money. So now they converting all, like a lot of people are converting a lot of their money over to silverback and gold back and, you know, silver coins, etc. Native American coins that's worth money. They pretty much getting more into real money. So what's your take on them getting people converting, like if they got over 100,000 just sitting around of this fiat currencies, like although some of it we're gonna switch over to the new system and they gonna transfer it out. But do you think it's a good idea to buy silver now with the Venezuela thing with JP Morgan in Tennessee setting up the refinery?
Me and Richard been telling people to buy silver at least 3.5, 4 years. I was telling them about gold the whole time, but I was also telling them about silver and copper and other metals. And I was also telling them about precious stones and gemstones, not necessarily diamonds, rubies, and sapphire, but you have other stones that carry frequency and energy that we want to be in contact with. So we was telling them about all of this stuff so we could have a head start in understanding the management of wealth. The people that have fiat currency that converted to silver and gold right now is smart as F. They financially savvy to the point they go, because remember, the greater the demand, the greater the cost to obtain it. If it's not in the supply, in order to match the demand, it automatically drives up the value.
That's right.
And if you got fiat currency, you'll be able when the new banks come online after the old banks, you'll be able to exchange it dollar value for dollar value. But the dollar value of that gold and that silver going to continue to rise as people switch over to the new currency systems with the gold backs, with the silver and the gold coins, right? And these are going to be, then you're going to always remember commemorative coins is like investing in a savings bond, especially when it's made from precious metals with a certification card that come with it and all that, because that's telling them, because the art that's added to it adds to the value of the material. So they give them out as commemorative coins, gold ones, silver ones, Some of them got gold and silver on them. But they put them in little display boxes for coin collectors. Because the coin collectors are the ones that know the coins that got the real raw material, like the original penny that was cast in copper was cast in real copper. But the penny that they print today is not even worth a penny to print. You can print like 12 of them for a penny. And that's why they discontinued the penny, because they wasn't using the copper penny no more, because the size of the copper that equals a penny would have been about the size of a microdot. So they can't give you a penny worth of copper no more. Without it being so small, you got to hold it with tweezers. That's a penny worth of copper now, right? But remember, the size of the penny hasn't changed.
No.
So that shows you, that's called inflation. This is why it's going to be illegal to lend money and borrow money, unless it's like your mama, you borrow something from your mama till you get to your place to give it back to her or something like that. But banks won't be able to lend money and they won't be able to borrow money in order to keep the inflation down. There will be no such thing as an interest rate because there will be no credit, right? You won't have to buy anything on credit. Anything that you want, you should be able to afford, right? And by understanding this, it's changing your whole understanding of life and how it's working versus not working out. You know, keeping your mind, all things come together for the greater good, right? And the golden heart paves the way of the golden path, the yellow brick road. The yellow brick road is a theoretical road to wealth. The city of Oz. Oz means strength, the strong city. The strong city is New York City because that's what Strong Island is, which is Long Island. That's what the tribes in New York call it, the Shinnecock. They call it Strong Island, even though it's Long Island, right? But there's 5 boroughs. 5 boroughs is 5 asses, which is 5 mules, which is 5 Democrats, which is 5 donkeys, which is 5 dummies.
I see it. I see the alchemy.
But the dummy is really a clown dressed up to look like a dummy. But you know us, we clown around when we hang around with the underground.
Right? Digital on the ground. Hey, hey, we about to get up out of here, y'all. Hey, what I was gonna say, it was one more thing I want to ask you, Rod. Yeah, so pretty much everything's going as scheduled. We just sitting in the saddle, riding this out, riding these suckers. They last little kick and scream. They ain't really kicking and screaming no more now. They got past that part now. They just walking off slow, just walking off, getting off our land slow now. Seems like they ain't even fighting back or trying to do nothing to me. It seems like to me.
So they created a grand spectacle in the political arena to get all of the people's attention to focus somewhere. Why do they want us to look to Venezuela?
Right.
Look back and review it again from a different lens. They want us to watch Venezuela so we could understand how when we was invaded, the foreigners decided to run the government in the interim. They was never supposed to be here this long, but because of the war, we was not prepared to rerun the government to the same level we had now. So we had to relearn it. And it took us only 100 years. Less than 100 years, because they've been telling us the parts of the story in different places. We just didn't remember enough to put it all together. Everybody gave some, and some gave all. Right? And so you got to remember, just because you don't see the war, don't mean that the war ain't been taking place. Just because you don't understand the level of warfare 500 years will develop to, don't mean that we ever stop fighting. We never stop fighting. You have people that still have active lawsuits in court that can be traced back all the way to the 1800s, where they've been suing these people for the fraud that they used, for committing the fraud that they committed on their family, trying to steal their land. You gotta remember, Martin said they undergirded the European peasantry with land and infrastructure. Where did they get the land from when all tribes told them we don't sell land? So where did they get the land from? Right? They keep telling us that they stole our land, but it's one part of theft that this land is not doing. It's not concealed. When I look out my window, it's still there. When I walk down the street, I see it everywhere. The land's still here. They didn't steal our land. They stole our identity that connects us to the land. But as an old Mississippian, Mississippi clay dirt walking, I know what I'm talking about when I tell you we was already here, because I did this so many times that nobody would believe I am who I say I am until they see what we said we did.
Right.
Y'all have and see.
And on that note, we could drop the mic and walk off stage. Hey, man, free all of our political prisoners, man. You know, we still fighting. We ain't never gave up, and we gonna fight. We gonna fight, man. Let's fight. You know what I'm saying? Let's keep it going. Let's keep making everybody aware. All we gotta do is keep making more people aware. The more people come online, the faster this shit go down. I'm telling you, the more people that we get online, I'm telling you, the faster it go down. The 100 monkey effect, right, Rod?
Yeah, the 100 monkey effect leads to critical mass. Critical mass is a nuclear fusion or fission. It's the spreading out of the nuclear fallout, the radiation wave, the wave that comes off the central blast and the energy field across the radio wave through the air, which is the airwaves. And the ones that's hearing it is the dry bones in the valley. So we speaking over social media to carry the message across the airwaves to the valley of the dry bones so they can rise up and be an exceedingly great army, the great army of Armageddon, the final conflict and the final showdown, right? Where they feed the imposters to all of the people of the land because they're gonna have to make them known to us and get out our way. So all you frauds and all you fakes, all you imposters, when the National Guard get arrested the last few deep state actors, and y'all riding through the neighborhood thinking we don't know who you is, and you've been a plant the whole time, and you know you a plant, and you know you a rotten, crooked SOB. You got to deal with these angry vice lords, GDs, Keystones, Bloods, Crips, Latin Kings, Latin Counts, Black Souls, Four Corner Hustlers. You're going to have to deal with them. Hell's Angels. You're going to have to deal with them. You shouldn't have been starting shit in our neighborhoods, turning our children against each other. We know who the frauds are. They all on file. They already exposed themselves by putting their name on contracts. Now you about to see all of their names put out in the open in the contracts that they signed with these people to subjugate the people of the land, even if it's what you call your brotherhood oath in the lodge. They gonna show who the dirty players is. It's finna come out. The infiltrators, the imposters. We done already been won the game. The game been won. And it wasn't about winning the game. This was about finding the imposters, getting the frauds out, the fakes, the usurpers, the underminers, the dirty motherfuckers out. This is what this has been about this last 5 years. And We been won the game because we ain't never not know who we was. Even when they was reclassifying us, telling us we was somebody else, we ain't never stopped being us. That's why our culture continue to evolve and grow while everybody else is living off our culture we started 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago or more. They still stuck in arrested development in all at the part of our culture when we created jazz, blues, bluegrass, country music, folk music, calypso music. Because most people don't know calypso music is a spinoff of reggae music, which is a conglomeration of music called island music from the different feel of the different tribes from the islands. Right? So when you put it all together, we never stopped being us. We just was misidentified and misclassified because they didn't think that we would be able to assert our territorial jurisdiction and reclaim the land following the oral tradition. And that's why I say he spake and the thing became, because he was speaking the truth. And out of his mouth came a two-edged sword. It cut both ways. It cut down the wicked and it cut the captives free. Right? So the campaign the whole time has been to cut down the wicked and set the captives free by telling the truth and shaming the devil, standing in the position of right with the blood and the right to assert the jurisdictional claim of the Great Mother to restore the balance back to the land and among the people. Now it's up to the people to acknowledge that we followed every step of the way until we got Big Momma to sit on the sacerdotal seat to reclaim the position of authority and jurisdictional power of the tribes. And now we can start finding the qualified family representative that's going to form your new political framework for the next age. They call them your tribal mothers. You got to have tribal mothers. If you see a dude running around talking about he a chief and he don't got a tribal mother, just know he not following the customs. Because you can't be the chief without the tribal mother telling somebody you the chief.
That's right.
It don't work that way. You can't just come up and assert your own jurisdiction. You can, and if you live up to it, a tribal mother is going to come up and tell everybody he is the chief he say he is.
Yeah.
You're going to be certified by some tribal mother somewhere. So if he tell you he don't got a tribal mother, he haven't caught on to the culture yet.
Yeah.
That means he's in two things. Either he's not fully developed yet for Big Momma to sign off on him, which is the case that I would hope, or he faking the funk, pretending to be like we ain't gonna never see who he is.
Yeah.
All eyes on me.
Somebody said Vicky Dillon. Hey, y'all, on that note, we about to get up out of here. Everybody sent Chief $5. We got 2,000 people in, man. Put them in the game, man. That'll take care of them right there. Put them all the way in the game. Send them $100 if you got it. Send them $1. Whatever you got, man. We take whatever. Hey, we love y'all. Peace and love throughout the balanced universe to all. Free Dr. Malachi Z. York. We waiting on to hear back on the Larry Hoover situation. We appreciate Trump for putting in the play already on that play, right? For Larry. We waiting on something to hear something about Jeff. I feel like we about to hear something shake on that too on Jeff Ford's case. A lot of these things.
I think his daughter should be coming out to give us a health report on him. She is the one, I think she is official spokesperson. So if you want us to know whatever was going on with him when they reported him passing out, she'll be the one delivering the message.
Okay. Shout out that boy Christopher Butler for the super chat. We out. One love, one heart. Peace. Wadu.
Never have it been made so clear.